والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه الطاهرين ما دامنا في السماوات والأرضين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم إنا نسألك علما ينفعنا اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا واسعا وعملا متقبلا وشفاء من كل داء. وبعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. كيف حالكم؟ ما شاء الله تبارك الله. Alhamdulillah, all thanks and praise due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His many blessings that He has bestowed upon us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in those blessings. لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you are grateful, indeed I will increase you in these blessings. One such blessing, alhamdulillah, is that we are afforded the opportunity to come together on a Sunday in a house of the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to not only read the book of Allah but to study it amongst ourselves. And many a virtue are mentioned for such a gathering, three of which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam highlights in one narration, and that is Nazarat alayhimus sakina, that peace and tranquility descends on such a gathering. Ghashiyatuhumur rahmah, the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surrounds this gathering. And wahafathumul malaika, and the angels flock around this particular gathering. Allah grant us the understanding. Now, without further ado, inshallah, we're going to continue with our reading of Surah Yaseen. And perhaps maybe just to recap a bit in terms of what we've covered. What have we covered thus far? We looked at a few phenomena, and those are standard phenomena in relation to the beginning of a chapter. So we looked at the name of the chapter. So Surah Yaseen is referred to as Surah Yaseen simply because it starts in that particular manner. Okay. Importantly, we looked at the timeline in terms of revelation. So the timeline, at the beginning of the chapter, there will be an indication, Makkiyya or Madaniyya. That's basically the timeline. So whether it was revealed prior to Hijrah or after Hijrah, pre or post Hijrah, we looked at that. What else did we look at? We had a discussion about naming somebody Yaseen. I don't recall if we actually had that conversation. We had that conversation. The important thing mentioned over there would be that according to some, Yaseen refers to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Very importantly, I don't know if I mentioned it before, that when you write out, if you name somebody Yaseen and you write the name, you don't write it as it's written in the Quran. Like, for example, when we write Yaseen, how do we write it? Like in Arabic, for example, you don't put Yaseen. You're going to say Ya Alif, Seen, Ya and Noon. You're going to write it out like that, Yaseen, as opposed to Yaseen. You follow me? Maybe we can just write that down so it can be abundantly clear. So there's absolutely no question. There is a difference of opinion. Some say that Yasin is a name of Allah. So then you can't give a human being an attribute of Allah. That's a weak view, and Allah knows best. So if you're naming somebody Yasin, this is how Yasin is written in the Quran. Yasin. So if somebody gets a name Yasin and you're writing in Arabic, it's going to be written like this. Yasin, Ya Alif, Seen, Ya and Noon. In English, it doesn't present a challenge at all, because the moment you translate Quran, it's no longer Quran. So if I put, for example, if I say Yasin, like that, there's no potential, confusion, because this is English. English is not Quran. Whereas in Arabic, there may be, when I name somebody Yasin, then you might think, but that's Quran. You follow me? Now, But when we take it from from Arabic to English, and then there's no question altogether, because there's no a potential for confusion between Yaseen as in Ya and Seen, and then Yaseen, a person named Yaseen, and Allah knows best. So that's some of the discussions that we had last week, alhamdulillah. So today we move to discuss the actual surah, to start with the actual surah. We had mentioned the narration towards the end, a famous narration. A colleague of mine, Abdul Rahman Khan, at the time when we were studying, this particular narration came up in terms of its authenticity. He had an article, a treatise about this narration, Yaseen Qalbul Quran, that Yaseen is the heart of the Quran. Yaseen is the heart of the Quran. And in terms of his study, the conclusion of the study was that this particular narration is authentic and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Yaseen Qalbul Quran. In terms of narration, there's two ways of looking at a phenomenon like this, and I think this is also very important. When you say a narration is authentic or not, what do you mean? So a narration refers to the words of the Prophet ﷺ, right? Now when you say this narration is authentic and this narration is not authentic, unauthentic, what do you mean when you say it's authentic? The link, the transmission, in other words, from the Prophet ﷺ to us, the chain of transmission, every link is a verified, authentic link, and therefore we say these narrations, the Prophet ﷺ certainly said it. Okay, so that's one thing. There's an interesting thing over here, just very briefly we can look at it. So you have a hadith. So we're going to say the hadith, we're going to look at two aspects of the hadith. The one is, I'm going to call it lafz. Are we familiar with the word lafz? Lafz means the word. So what is the word here? The wording we're saying is Qalbul Quran Yaseen. That's the wording. Okay? Then the other aspect of the narration is when we look at the ma'na, we look at the meaning. You with me? Is everybody following me? Right? It's a fairly simple discussion. Here's a narration from the Prophet ﷺ. The wording reads Yaseen Qalbul Quran, or Qalbul Quran Yaseen. Yaseen is the heart of the Quran. Now when we look to this particular wording, right, here there's a difference of opinion. Some say it's authentic, others says no, it's not authentic. Right? We are going with the view that says that the wording is authentic, on the premise that the wording cannot be successfully attributed to the Prophet ﷺ. In other words, we're saying that the Prophet ﷺ did not say it. That's what you mean when you say the narration is not authentic. It means the Prophet ﷺ didn't say it. You follow me? Like for example, and this is now like a wacky example, but just to facilitate understanding, right? I say to you, the Prophet ﷺ said, support the booker. So what's the wording? Support the booker. Now tell me, is that narration authentic or inauthentic? Inauthentic. I cannot, leave alone a chain of transmission, there's no chain of transmission. I fabricated it. Right? So that's in terms of wording. So what wording do we have here? That the Qalbul Quran Yaseen, that the heart of the Quran is Yaseen. If you go on the premises that this narration is inauthentic, right? Our scholars in terms of Mufassirun, they say that even if you look at the wording being inauthentic, in terms of meaning, if you look at the meaning, and then it is true. So whether you attribute it to the Prophet ﷺ or not, when you look at Yaseen and you understand the content of Yaseen in terms of the meaning, you're going to come to the realization that Yaseen is the heart of the Quran. You follow me? So there's two different ways of looking at it, in terms of a narration and then in terms of the meaning. So the next question would be that why is Yaseen referred to as the heart of the Quran? either by the Prophet ﷺ or in terms of its meaning. You follow me? So now we got to think a bit about Quran. Now before I continue with that, what happened is when I was thinking of Yaseen as such, as a community, what Yaseen, does it feature prominently in our community? Absolutely. You know, like at every occasion, it's occasion enough to recite Yaseen. There's an authentic narration in that particular regard with no question. What does the Prophet ﷺ say? Iqra'u Yaseen ala mawtakum. That read Yaseen upon your dead. Now, people understand it differently. Some say that, you know, on your dead means when the person is in the throes of death, in other words, before he passes away. Some understand it to be that once the person has passed away, now you read Surah Yaseen. The difference may exist, but the importance of all the chapters in Quran, the Prophet ﷺ says, read Surah Yaseen. And we can understand the significance about it later, inshallah. So that's the first one. So that's point number one. Iqra'u Yaseen ala, I'm just going to put here mawtakum as a point to remember. Read it upon your dead. Okay. Number two is, I want to mention of what I came across recently. I want to talk about our, let me just call amaluna, our communal practice. Our communal practice as a community is to recite Yasin all of the time. Like it's like a standard practice. After Fajr every day in the masjid we read Yasin, depending on the season. Otherwise, at the very least, on the weekend mornings we read Yasin and so forth. There are two scholars, contemporary scholars, they've passed on now, that I want to highlight in terms of their practice. So I want to look at ulama, in other words, scholarly practice. Scholarly practice. So when I look at the scholarly practice, I find two scholars stand out. The one is Sheikh Muhammad Sa'id Ramadan al-Bhuti. He was a contemporary scholar. He was martyred very recently. Very successful, both in terms of his academics, both in terms of his spirituality, and particularly in terms of his written works. He's produced a lot of written works. When asked about, you know, the success in life, he said that his father gave him a legacy. Legacy is a wasiyah. Wasiyah is like a command, but you know, when you cushion it in these words, it's like I'm encouraging you to do something that's going to avail you in this world as well as in the year after. That's a wasiyah, technically speaking. Wasiyah, it's a command, but the word wasiyah, it's like an endearing way, man, in a loving way, you're giving somebody a command. What was the wasiyah that his father gave him? That recite Surah Yaseen every day. So he says, from the time my father gave me that advice, right, up until his last day, I've read Yaseen every morning, and where possible, I would read it every evening as well. So his entire success he attributes it to Surah Yaseen. Now, there's another scholar, Abul Hasan Ali Nadwi rahmatullah alayh. He hailed from India. He was of the family of the Prophet ﷺ. He was primarily a historian and a master of the Arabic language. He's written a number of works that we use as readers. His habit was that on a Friday morning, he used to read, not surahs, not once, a number of times. The Friday that he passed away, when he passed away, he was probably one of the very few foreigners that Salatul Janaza al-Ghaib was performed for him both in Mecca and Medina. So in other words, in terms of his Janaza, there was 2.5 million people reading Salatul Janaza al-Ghaib upon him. That was the status that he had in the Islamic world. Now, the day he passed away, the Friday morning that he passed away, he had recited Surah Yaseen 11 times. They say as it was his practice. You know, just reciting Surah Yaseen all of the time. Okay. This scholarly practice, we mentioned two examples now. The one is Sheikh Abul Hasan Ali Nadwi. I'm just going to say Abul Hasan Ali Nadwi. And the other one is Dr. Muhammad Sa'id Ramadan al-Bhuti, Surah Yaseen. Okay. So, if they read it 14 times, you and I, we can manage to read it at least once. But the important thing is, why should you be reading Surah Yaseen? And why, in terms of meaning, is it referred to as Qalbul Quran? Qalb. So perhaps for us, it's a simple exercise, I think. But to look at the word Qalb, what does Qalb mean? Heart. So what do you have, what are you familiar with? This is you, right? And there's your heart. Okay, that's an okay heart, right? Okay, normally when I try to make it better, it gets worse, but okay. So that's your heart. So your heart in relation to your body, right? That's basically, I'm drawing the lines of the metaphor. So your heart in relation to your body, right? So when you have the Quran here, you have a chapter in Quran, it's called Yaseen. Now the relationship between Yaseen and the Quran is like the relationship between your heart and the rest of the body. Take your heart out of the body, what happens? You pass away, right? So what happens from the heart? Everything, in order to oxygen, so the heart survives on oxygen. So it oxygenates all your blood. All your blood goes to your heart, deoxygenated, and then your heart oxygenates and sends it to the balance of the body, right? So what happens is, in terms of the Quran, here, everything starts from here. In terms of the Quran, right? Everything is contained in the Quran. Actually, the source of it is here in Surah Yaseen, all contained over there. What is that? I'm just basically giving you an idea, a construct in your mind, so that we can actually come down to the meaning of why Yaseen is referred to as the heart of the Quran. And it will give us an opportunity, to, I think for myself personally also, to engage and look up in terms of what is there in Yaseen, right? But Imam Ghazali rahimahullah, he sums it up. When you as a Muslim, what is the basis of you as a Muslim? It is this is very simple, and I wouldn't want it to be like an anticlimax. It's very profound. What Imam Ghazali rahimahullah says is that the basis of you as a believer is Iman. The basis of you as a believer is Iman, right? So your Iman, he ties it into a unique phenomenon which we have discussed every now and then. But the fact that Imam Ghazali rahimahullah points it out, it adds a lot of weight to it. Appeal to personality adds a lot of weight to it. Your Iman is made up of a number of aspects, isn't it? He singles out the primary aspect of your Iman. So what did we say about Iman? We quoted that declaration a number of times. Amantu billah wa malaikati wa kutubi wa rusuli wal yawmil akhir wal qadri khayri wa sharri min Allah ta'ala wal ba'thi ba'd al maut. Imam Ghazali rahimahullah says the primary aspect of your belief is ba'thi ba'd al maut, is resurrection. I'm going to put an R there for resurrection. The primary aspect of your belief as a believer is you believe in resurrection, that there is life after death, where you're going to appear in front of Allah and give accountability for it. And this aspect of resurrection, right, is mentioned and expounded upon in Surah Yaseen. That's why it's called the Qalbul Quran. Now for you and I, it may take a while for us to actually not comprehend it theoretically, but to accept and acknowledge the profundity of this particular phenomenon. Because for us, as I believe in the year after, but not realizing how profound that particular aspect is in terms of our theology, in terms of our dogma. That we're different because we believers. What do we believe in? Of everything that we believe in, of the most profound is we believe in this phenomenon called life after death. And because this belief influences all of our actions, then this belief becomes like the heart, and everything is basically revolves around that. So in other words, if you look at it, our entire existence now revolves around what? Like your body revolves around the heart, our entire existence revolves around a belief. And particularly what belief? That look here, Allah sent me into this world, I'm here for a short time, I'm going back to Allah. And so everything is hinged upon that. Like all your body parts is hinged upon your heart, everything in terms of our Islam and our Iman is hinged upon this particular reality, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. If you wanted to, and you wanted to thrash it out more, almost in a sense that it makes the idea more palatable, that Yasin is the heart of Quran, then you look at what does Allah talk about? What is the Quran? What is the Quran? The Quran is revelation from Allah, isn't it? So what does it contain? It contains our guidance, right? So how does Allah start off this particular surah? Yasin wal Quran al Hakim innaka lamin al mursalin ala siratin mustaqim. This basically the details of this revealed scripture is going to be contained within Quran, but the primary ideas are contained within Yasin, and from Yasin in other chapters these ideas are expounded. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Almost like the blood flows from the Quran. These ideas, it actually flows like blood flows from your heart. Like this, these ideas flow from Surah Yaseen, and Allah knows best. I hope that helps, inshallah. Are there any questions? So why I'm asking that is because, the classes I enjoy the most is when, I talk less and you talk more. So interaction. Because it's like, otherwise it becomes very top down, boring. You start falling asleep after a while. I start wondering when does the period come to an end. And like that, So let's not have that. Let's have nice interactive, So you understand this phenomenon and these ideas and the significance of Surah Yaseen. Tafadhal. Ilyas. Does it ring a bell now? Ilyaseen. That's an interesting. Is it Ilyaseen? Ilyaseen. If you bring me the verse and I can look at it, I do recall now reading about Alu Yaseen. With some understand, remember we said Yaseen will refer to the Prophet ﷺ, then say Alu Yaseen, the family of the Prophet ﷺ. So that's one use. But Ilyaseen, I have to look that up. I hope we're not getting sort of confused with like Ilyas, because Ilyas is also a messenger. Ilyas and Yasa. Ilyas and Yasa. They are referred to as two messengers. Tamam. Barakallah. Any other questions? Fadal. Commence even, like just to create an interactiveness about the class. Bismillah.
Is it correct to say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam after you say Yaseen?
Okay, so I didn't know you weren't here last week, but now I know you weren't here last week. Allah reward you. So yes, it's entirely permissible in terms of our understanding. We explained that Yaseen is of those cut-off letters. So categorically only Allah knows its meaning, right? But that doesn't stop scholars from applying themselves. And some scholars, they applied themselves and said, look, Yaseen means Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what happens is now people read Yaseen sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because when they read Yaseen, they understand the word Yaseen to mean Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the nice thing about our discussion last week was that, you see, when the person says Yaseen sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then they go back and they say Yaseen wal Quran al Hakim. So the first time they read it in terms of a meaning, and then the second time they read it as it appears in Quran. So as long as we maintain the Quranic status of the verses, no problem. So it's very much like, when you read a verse about paradise and hell and you seek refuge, or you ask for paradise, seek refuge from hell, and then, so in other words, you read in Quran, but you're interspacing it with a supplication. Is that permissible? Yes, it is permissible, as long as you are clear in terms of Quran is Quran, and what you're doing is in terms of the meaning. Right? So it's completely permissible. Wallahu a'lam. And our encouragement was that if somebody does it, we will live and let live. It's not something which is necessary, because somebody else might understand Yaseen, look, I don't know the meaning, and that's the view that I'm taking, and I'm not going to speculate in terms of what the meaning is. Others speculate and say it's Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so therefore they say sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So our approach generally is live and let live. That we have a view, but we respect the other view as well. So if you come to like a Ratib, for example, and before the Ratib they're reading Yaseen sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like my practice would be, if everybody's saying Yaseen sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then I'm also Yaseen sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Yaseen wal Quran Hakim. If everybody's saying Yaseen wal Quran Hakim, I'm not going to say sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Was verkeerd met die jamaat? So live and let live. It's لِكُلِّ وِجْهَةٌ وَمُوَلِّيَةٌ فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. Unfortunately, in our communities, these become points of contention and we fight about it. Allah bless and protect, inshallah. And many times the person who is like sometimes making the objection, he doesn't read Yaseen. But when you say sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then it's important. The important thing is to read Yaseen every day, as we see in the practice of our scholars. Wallahu a'lam. Tamam. Khair. So now we begin with the surah Yaseen. So where are we now? Bismillah. Now, wal Quran al Hakim. So Yaseen wal Quran al Hakim. Now the wow there would be, you have different types of wow. Wow can mean and. Wow, unlike the English language, can basically be, they say wow al ibtida. In the Arabic language, you can start a sentence with and. For us, it's a conjunction, it's a joining word. You don't start a sentence like that. But Arabic is different. But this wow is neither and what they refer to as atf, or neither does the sentence start like that. But like the brother pointed out, it's wow al qasam. Wow al qasam. So Allah takes an oath. Allah takes an oath. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes an oath. Why? The first thing is the nature of the oaths of Allah. The nature of the oaths of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah is grand, Allah is great. So in Arabic they have the saying, Al-Azim la yuqsimu illa bi-azim. That Allah who is great does not take an oath except by something which is great. So one of the purposes, the reasons why Allah takes an oath by something is to aggrandize that thing, to make it important. You follow me? So now when you read, for example, wal asr, time. We know time, but you and I, we may take time for granted. So now what does Allah do? Allah takes an oath by time. So now you're saying, oh, if Allah takes an oath by time, time must be something rather important. Right? So here again, Allah takes an oath by Quran. And the idea behind that is to aggrandize the Quran. Al-Azim la yuqsimu illa bi-azim. He who is great does not take an oath except by that which is great. So wal Quran al Hakim. So Allah takes an oath by Al Quran. Now, the other thing also would be that why do you take an oath? Why do you take an oath? And I want to put a different perspective before I give you the other explanation. So the first, maybe if you could look at the class like in this way, man, you have like an idea and you just basically box the idea. That's what I do in my mind. I have an idea, you box the idea. So what idea have you boxed away now? That wow is wow al-qasam. And when Allah takes an oath, that thing by which He takes an oath by, He aggrandizes it, makes it great. So now Allah takes an oath by the Quran. Why? He's aggrandizing, making the Quran great. Put that away. You box that. Now, why do we take an oath? I'm going to add now a completely different perspective. You've boxed the first idea away already. That's like sorted. Second idea in terms of a qasam. Why do we take qasam? Sorry? We win? To remove any doubt, alleviate any doubt, okay?
It's the same, but if you take an oath in terms of Quran, it means that you take Allah as your witness, which means that should you be wrong in what you're saying, Allah will take it.
That's the nature of an oath. You're taking an oath by Allah. So in other words, you're invoking like in a court of law. You put you swear solemnly to speak the truth and only the truth. In other words, you're calling upon Allah to witness that. Now, so it's all correct, just different meanings of the qasam. But primarily, when you take an oath, is basically to remove any doubt. So you say, for example, this morning, that Wallahi ma akaltu kusista. I take an oath by Allah, I haven't had a kusista. As crazy as it sounds, it's now 9 o'clock already, and you're not going to believe me, but I mean the day has progressed and I haven't had a kusista yet, Wallahi. So to remove any doubt, because maybe if I told you I didn't have a kusista, you're lying. Sunday, no kusista, come on. So you follow. So Wallahi is for, like if you wanted to, emphasis. So Allah is taking an oath by Quran to aggrandize the Quran, but Allah is also taking an oath by the Quran because He wants to tell you something now. So it's emphasis. So it's almost like Allah is saying Wallahi, and what does He want to say? He wants to say something further on. So the qasam becomes in terms of our sentences, the mubtada, the subject. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has like He emphasizes the subject by a qasam, because He wants to tell you something about the subject later on. So that now, there's a great degree of emphasis. You follow me? So let's not forget that Allah just doesn't take a qasam by the Quran to aggrandize the Quran. He's taking a qasam because He wants to tell you something, and He wants to tell you that thing with emphasis. And what is it? He wants to tell you, you want to say, إِنَّكَ لَمِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ, that you are certainly a messenger. That's the khabar. So Allah doesn't tell you, like Allah, Yaseen, إِنَّكَ لَمِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. The meaning will still be there, but the qasam is not there, so the emphasis is lost. Tamam? So qasam is for emphasis. Okay. So you put that idea away. Two ideas now we spoke about. Wow. When Allah takes an oath by something, He aggrandizes that thing. First idea. Second idea is when Allah takes a qasam, it's for emphasis, like you do. You say, Wallahi billahi, 10 days in Quran. Now why did you have to mention 10 days in Quran? Because the person doesn't want to believe you. So you put emphasis, 10 days in Quran. I don't think there's anywhere in the world where they have that, no? In Arabic, what I've read is, Wallahi, Tallahi, wa Rabbil Kaaba. Fi Cape Town, and in Cape Town, 10 days in Quran. Oh, subhanallah. But you understand the point. So firstly, to aggrandize the Quran. Number two, for emphasis. The third point is an unrelated point which I want to mention to you. And this is about upbringing. That in terms of, you see, you and I, what is our propensity to take an oath? If we say, I swear. Now, you know, if somebody says every time, I swear, I swear, I swear, we're actually going to put a question mark around this person's integrity and honesty. And the Prophet ﷺ, he spoke about a time will come where a person will not be believed except when he takes a qasam. What is the Prophet ﷺ talking about? He's talking about there will come a time where lies will be so widespread that in order for the person to be believed, he's going to have to take a qasam. You follow me? So how do we understand that? You know, they talk about respect. If you want respect, you must give respect. If you want integrity and honesty, you must give respect and honesty. So you know your children, many of us are of age where you have children. You must discourage them to use qasam. So if the child tells you something, right? If you have reason that this child is telling a fib, that's something else. But you know, under normal circumstances, when the child tells you something, you believe the child. You may even be incorrect, the child is lying, but because he sees you believing him, then this may change the child. I'm not saying you must, that's a bit of a slippery slope to go on, but it could very well be that. But don't question everything the child says, because that's going to create a hate within the child's psyche, that in order for me to be believed, I must take a qasam. Whereas the opposing way of nurturing, upbringing the child is where qasam doesn't form part of his vocabulary, it leads to integrity within the child. What did you say? You don't have to take a qasam. What happened? Okay, this happened. Khalas, you believe the child. You know, that integrity. So that's the third aspect of qasam. The Sahaba was such that, you know, if they come and they may be selling something, and the person, he says what he says, and the guy tells them, take a qasam. He says, look here, I'd rather not sell it to you, but I'm not going to take a qasam. In other words, I'm a person of integrity. If you're going to pull me down to such a space where I have to take a qasam for you to believe me, then look here, we shouldn't be doing business together, rather. Are you with me? But the principal thing of integrity. So when qasams become widespread, then it's actually telling of a very sad situation. And the Prophet prophesied that. So to our level, best we must try to avoid that. Wallahu a'lam. So those are the three aspects that we can look at in terms of the qasam. Fadal. Naam. So there's a good point there. So now you understand the enormity of taking one qasam. Look, if Allah tells you something is the truth, but does Allah have to take a qasam? No. But when Allah takes a qasam, it's for emphasis. Now what if Allah takes a number of qasams? وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. 8 qasam. So what is that? Emphasis after emphasis, after emphasis after emphasis. And Allah could have just mentioned the one and leave the wow out in all the other ones, because then you'd understand all of it are qasams. The fact that Allah makes 8 qasams, and then for every qasam He puts a wow at the beginning, it's like the greatest degree of emphasis. And what does Allah want to tell you at the end of the day? That this thing which I'm telling you about is very important. What does He tell you? قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. The person who reforms himself, who sublimates himself, who gets the upper hand over his own base desires, aflaha, indeed he is successful. 8 qasams to impress upon you what? That enemy within, which is the self. And there's even more emphasis there than on many other places, because this is your success. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your success, if you look at the idea here about Allah taking a qasam there, if you think about it, Allah ties in your success to an external factor or an internal factor that you have control of? Internal factor that you have control of. But many of us, when we fail, what do? We attribute it to all external factors which is beyond our control. So then we become the victim, which is one of the greatest spiritual illnesses of today's time. We become the victim and we blame everybody else for our failure. Allah is talking about success, and success is what? In how you manage yourself. And yes, there are circumstances that can become debilitating and become very bad. That is, we're not like ignoring that altogether. But at the end of the day, the ball is in your court. You know what I'm saying in terms of the Islamic way of looking at things? We don't, And today we find a new thing. When a person, when he's successful, he attributes the success all to himself. But when he fails, it's for this reason, that reason, the other reason. We take, like what's the name for the... So it's important for us, just psychologically, the way we look at things, and to make the best of and the success of our worldly life and the year after. And maybe in today's time also a measure of success of the year after is that sometimes we don't make a success of the worldly life. It's like sometimes one is somewhat reflective of the other one. Because deen has come not only to look after your akhirah, your dunya also. So you find that people, these principles, and Yaseen is going to talk about that. Ala sirati mustaqim. To be on the sirati mustaqim means what? That you only get the akhirah. No. Sirati mustaqim means that you're on the straight path which will lead you to success in this world as well as in the year after. That's the sirati mustaqim. So even in a worldly sense, you need to take control of to the measure that Allah SWT has allowed you to take control of things and make a success of our lives. So to answer your question, that those qasams it's an increased emphasis on the subject matter there, that thing which Allah is taking qasam of. That's why Allah repeats all of the qasams. Now, tamam. Wal Quran al Hakim. So Allah says Wal Quran. Allah takes an oath by Quran. And how does Allah describe the Quran? Describes the Quran as Al Hakim. Al Hakim. Now, so Allah says He takes an oath by the Quran. What is the nature of Quran? Al Hakim. Now tell me the word Al-Hakim, you come across it a lot? A lot. So what do you say? The wise. But what is it? When you say the wise, you give me a translation, right? But if I may be as presumptuous as to say that your translation doesn't have a meaning. You're saying wise, you're off the hook. And the wise Quran, Allah takes an oath by the wise Quran. What do you mean by wise even? Because remember, we're not going with the wording, we're going with the meaning. Allah takes an oath now, Wal Quran, and then Allah describes the Quran as Al-Hakim. What does Hakim mean? MashaAllah, the brother with the donuts came in now. You say the day, Habibi. But donuts is not a good sister, no? Don't make a mistake, Habib. Donut and good sister, هذا شيئان مختلفان. They are two mutually exclusive entities. They are related to one another. One day there was a guest by our house, Sheikh Abdul Salam Al-Majidi, and Sheikh Ismail was sitting there. So he had a good sister the day before. So because he came from from Qatar, and then he came to Cape Town, so obviously one of the first things that he needed to taste was the kusista. So he tasted the kusista. So the next day he was by our place and they gave him the donut. So he asked Sheikh Ismail, what is this? Now you must understand a little bit of Arabic. What is this? He wants to know what is the donut, What is the ta'rif, the definition of a donut? And what's his relationship? So Sheikh Ismail said, Ibnu Ukhti, the cousin of the kusista. Ibnu Ukhti kusista. The cousin, so they're cousins, So I mean, if you can't have the one cousin, then at least you must have the donut. Now, if you can't have the kusista, you must have the donut at least, alhamdulillah. Tamam. So now, Wal Quran al Hakim. Wal Quran, and by the Quran al Hakim, you translate the word al Hakim as wise. So what does it mean? Truth, okay.
The wisdom of Allah.
Wisdom of Allah. Wisdom of Allah, tamam. This wisdom is like an ambiguous phenomenon. Like, what is wisdom? So you can define wisdom as knowledge, okay? So I take an oath by the Quran which is filled with knowledge, okay? That's what you mean by wisdom. Fine. The meanings are all sort of like, in the corporate they say directionally correct. Like you're going in the right direction. But sometimes people use that direction and make it summa from the mashriq to the maghrib, to the east and the west. As long as you're moving somewhere, you're off the Surat al-Mustaqim, but okay, you're directionally correct. Using knowledge correctly. Jameel. Wal Quran al-Hakim. So hikmah, you have knowledge, but you're employing this knowledge like properly. So that amounts to wisdom. Okay. The word Hakim comes a lot in the Quran. Knowledge, so as I say, the employment of knowledge, how you use that knowledge, so that leads to wisdom. Now what happens in Quran, you find my idea is not to trap on your feet or anything, or all the answers are correct. But if you want to come down to the proper answer, it's something which troubled me because I'm also always reading Hakim, and then I know Allah is the Hakim, and then I talk about hikmah and the word hukam. All of these words come a lot in the Quran. And sometimes you look at the word hukam, وَآتَيْنَاهُ الْحُكْمَ وَالنُّبُوَّةِ, we gave him a hukam and we gave him nubuwah. Then you want to know what is hukam. Sometimes the ulama say hukam means hikmah, and then sometimes they say hikmah means hukam. And Allah is Hakim, and Allah is the Hakim. What does all of these mean? So what I came to in terms of Ibn Ashur, he talks about hikmah. And the definition he gives for hikmah is as follows. I'll read to you from the text. Al-itqanu bimahiyati shay fima yuradu minhu. So the word itqan means to have excellence in the essence of something in terms of what it's intended for. That is Hakim. Excellence in the essence of something in terms of what it is intended for. That is Hakim. So what is the Quran intended for? Guidance, right? So now how do we describe the guidance in Quran? It is excellence in itself in the Quran for what is intended for. And what is it intended for? To guide you. That is Hakim. You with me? No, in other words, excellence in guidance in this context. Wal Quran al-Hakim. The Hakim is excellence in terms of what is intended for. So what is the Quran intended for? Guidance. So in other words, let's look at something else. Let's look at the South African Constitution and compare it to Quran. So what's going to happen? We're going to say the Quran is Hakim. That seeks out to guide you and regulate your life, but it's not going to do for you what Quran is going to do for you, because our Quran is Hakim. And then you can use the word Hakim to refer to anything else. So hikmah, wisdom, really, it actually means excellence in terms of achieving the objective, what is it set out for. So can you have like even food stuff which is Hakim? So for example, but okay, then we're gonna, what is food supposed to, let's say if we agree that food's supposed to nourish you and we take the enjoyment factor out of it, food's supposed to nourish you, right? So tell me, that spookies, you know spookies? Spookies, is it Hakim or Ghair Hakim? So you eating spookies, are you Hakim or Ghair Hakim? I'm just giving like example to understand the concept of Hakim, because food, if we're talking about hikmah, wisdom, what we say is what? Excellence in the essence of something in terms of achieving what it sets out to do. So now food is supposed to nourish you. So this type of food, is it Hakim or Ghair Hakim? It's Ghair Hakim, because it doesn't have the excellence within itself that by means of that it will achieve the excellence that it sets out to achieve. You with me? Now if you understand Wal Quran al-Hakim, what does Quran seek to do? To guide you. And what's the nature of its guidance? Its guidance is Hakim. It's excellence, right? In its very essence in the Quran, in terms of achieving the objective. And what is the objective? for you to be rightly guided in all aspects of your life, in this world as well as in the year after. You with me? The idea behind this whole discussion is for us to understand the word Hakim, not merely as a translation in terms of wisdom, but what does Allah mean when He says the Quran is Hakim? You get a completely different appreciation of what we're actually doing. And what we're doing, we may be only doing one surah, but this surah really is the heart of all the other surahs. So if we understand this, we're going to understand everything else. And Allah knows best. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.